She knelt down before the gravestone, which was shaped like a little angel. Why did it all happen this way? This tiny little person was supposed to live, to breathe, to take their first step and say their first word. But instead, for the 5th year now, lies in the cold ground. And it is only her fault. It all happened a little over 4 years ago. The big city went about its everyday life and paid no attention at all to her, a fair-haired girl who had come from a small settlement in the Urals. In fact, she was even glad about that. She calmly enrolled in a nursing school and settled into a modest little dorm room on the outskirts. The very first months of city life made it clear, without money, there was absolutely nothing to do here. She couldn't afford trendy clothes, expensive lipstick, or trips to nightclubs and cafes. The prettier and more outgoing classmates adapted quickly. Some found wealthy admirers, others landed good jobs. But she, plain and naturally modest, wasn't so lucky. To avoid going hungry, she got a job as a hospital aide at the maternity ward. She worked nights, and during the day she crammed her notes and did her best not to fall asleep in lectures. One day, a girl was admitted to her ward, a very young one, about 17 years old. The nurses gossiped that this young beauty was the mistress of a well-known businessman in the city. And supposedly, the baby was his as well. The delivery was difficult, but everything turned out fine. A healthy baby girl was born, weighing just over 3 kilograms. That night, it was her shift. There wasn't much work. New patients weren't in a hurry to arrive. She was standing on the porch by the staff entrance, smoking, when a woman unexpectedly approached her. The stranger looked to be about 40 years old. Her dark hair was impeccably styled, her coat was clearly expensive, and her facial features were quite refined. What was this beautiful lady doing here, in the middle of the night, at the back of the maternity hospital? "I see you work here," the night visitor said without any unnecessary pleasantries. "Yeah, as a hospital aide." "Why?" "You're exactly who I need. The thing is, my husband recently, let's say, got himself a girlfriend. This young woman is now pregnant. And now she's in your hospital with her newborn daughter. So I need that child too." For the first time, the woman hesitated, searching for the right words. "In short, I need you to make sure that child doesn't exist. Do you understand me?" After waiting for an affirmative nod, the stranger continued, "Naturally, I'll make it worth your while. Do you agree?" A chill ran down her spine. The hint was hard to miss. Kill a child? That's godless. But then, it was as if something clicked in her mind. Designer store windows and enticing signs of expensive restaurants flashed before her eyes. Killing a newborn baby in a way that no one would suspect was not particularly difficult for her, a straight-A student. And the mother, well, she was still so young. Who knows, maybe the death of her daughter would even be a blessing for her. Having made up her mind, she nodded once more in agreement. It was already quite late in the evening, but on the city's main street, ablaze with colorful lights and glowing billboards, it was almost as bright as day. She walked along the sidewalk, peering into every shop window she passed and smiling, so pleased was she with her own reflection. New patent leather boots, a designer leather jacket, a short skirt, and of course, a trendy haircut that completed her look as a true socialite beauty. "Miss," came a voice from behind her. "Miss, wait. May I get to know you? Please." A couple of months into their happy marriage, she realized she was expecting a child. Her beloved husband was overjoyed. For a while, everything was going well, but then one night, she was awakened by the sound of a baby crying. She sat up in bed and looked around. Her husband was sleeping quietly beside her, as if he hadn't heard a thing. It must be a baby crying somewhere in one of the neighboring apartments, she thought. But no, the crying was coming from right nearby. Moreover, it felt as if the entire room was saturated with it. It echoed from every corner, from the ceiling, from the walls. She recognized that cry. That tiny little girl hadn't cried for long, but she had managed to remember the sound. On that terrible night, she had suppressed her feelings of pity. She didn't wake up the next day, though, when it became known that the young mother, upon learning of her child's death, had taken her own life. And now that crying was here, in her own home. How? From where? She wanted to get up and wake her husband, but she couldn't. Her body was paralyzed. Not a single part of it could move. A sharp pain in her lower abdomen brought her back to her senses. The crying could no longer be heard. Silence reigned in the room. Finally waking her husband, she asked him to call 911. The hospital, the ICU, the doctor's sad eyes and that terrifying word, miscarriage. She received mental health treatment for about half a year and then became pregnant again. This time, everything went well. A wonderful little girl was born into the young family. The tragedy happened 2 weeks after they were discharged from the maternity ward. She put her daughter to bed and went out to the stairwell to check the mailbox. As she stepped onto the landing, she almost bumped nose to nose into a young woman she didn't know, dressed in strange clothes that looked very much like strange night clothes. However, she didn't see anything unusual about it. The stranger must have come to visit one of the neighbors, she thought, and that's why she was walking around in loungewear. Although the young woman's face did seem familiar to her. She was certain she had seen it somewhere before. "You have a wonderful little daughter," the girl said, with a certain sadness in her voice. "Thank you," she replied automatically, but then suddenly shuddered. "How do you know I have a daughter?" "I just know," the stranger said, still with that same sadness. "But you won't be a mother for long." "What do you mean?" "You carry the sin of killing a baby. Your children are paying for it." She began to tremble with terror. Spinning around abruptly, she rushed to the door of her apartment. It was locked. There was no one left inside except the child. Desperately, she reached for the door handle. Meanwhile, the stairwell began to fill with the sound of a child crying. That same cry. God, she thought she remembered where she had seen that girl before. It was her baby whose life she had once taken. "I didn't mean to," she screamed with all her might. "Please don't take my little girl, I beg you." But the stranger was already gone. A few minutes later, the door opened. The crying stopped. She burst into the room like lightning and, out of her mind with fear, rushed to the crib. The little one was dead. What happened to her after that? A nervous breakdown, a course of psychological recovery, long visits to clinics, and the verdict, infertility. A divorce from her husband, who could never come to terms with her infertility, and now she had nothing left. Nothing except this little grave mound and a tiny headstone. "Forgive me, baby girl," she whispered, "and please don't cry anymore." Her trembling hand reached into her pocket and pulled out a knife. The blade slid across her wrist, and for the last time, the clear sound of a child's cry echoed in the air.